Welcome back to the Flip Bama Flip podcast. I'm your host, Victoria. And today we're going to continue our preparation for regionals, which for us starts tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the Corvallis Regional. Right now, there's actually a couple other regionals going on today, both the Tempe Regionals, the two semifinal meets, and the two semifinal meets in the Baton Rouge semifinals are going on today. But we don't start tomorrow, so we get another day of prep, another day to rest and stretch and do all the things we need to do so that we don't tear any muscles while we're cheering for the team. You'll notice I'm not wearing any of my Bama stuff today, and that's because everything's in the wash because I have not yet decided which is the lucky t-shirt for tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure I had all the options available. If I need to make a last minute switch, I can do so. So make sure you got all your gear, all your game time stuff ready for tomorrow because that's when this whole postseason thing starts for Alabama. So yesterday, I recorded it yesterday and I posted it today. But yesterday, I talked all about the teams that Alabama is likely to meet along the way to nationals. So should we make it through semifinals tomorrow, we do know who's in that semifinal. That is set. That is not changing. That's Denver. That's Utah. That's Oregon State and Alabama. But beyond that, we kind of speculated if Alabama makes it through to Sunday, who they might meet there. So the focus was really on the other teams. But today I want to focus on what does Alabama, what do we need to do? And the good news is it's a lot of small things that we need to do to just elevate our performance, our execution. I'm so happy that I'm not getting on here and being like, well, we kind of need to basically do something we haven't done all season and be a different team than we've been all season. So it's always nice when the what do we need to do is a tweak here, a tweak there, and not a major overhaul of the program. So we're in a good spot. But let's start with looking at where did we leave off after the SEC championships? So we all know that going into SEC championships, we were the fourth ranked team in the nation, and UCLA had the audacity to jump us. And so now they are number 4 and we are number 5. Hopefully you've seen, and we talked about this in the other regional preview, it's kind of a moot point. We would have ended up in the exact same regional that we're in now had we been number 4, where UCLA is. So kind of doesn't make a difference other than if you really, really care about what that number is next to your name. But in terms of our path toward a national championship, we're in the exact same spot we would have been had we been number 4th. We finished with an NQS of 197.498. Not too shabby. Really, really good. We were second on uneven bars and on floor exercise, 8th on vault, and 10th in the nation on balance beam. So all of our scores, all of our rotations were in the top 10 nationally. And not really surprising. I mean, we are ranked number 5. You don't get to be ranked number 5 if you have a rotation that is just a total liability. I think what's really interesting when you look at those rankings is that we are ranked higher on vault than we are on balance beam. And the reason I say this is I would say 90% the messages that I get about the team are related to vault. And why are we not better at vaulting? What's wrong with our vaults? Why can't we kind of figure things out on vault? And there's this perception that vault is what is really weighing us down. And I thought about it because I was like, when you look at it and you look at the numbers, like again, ranked 7th in the nation, hard to call that a liability. Now, I will say that the elite teams, so when you're looking at Oklahoma, when you're looking at LSU, when you're looking at Florida, their vault rotations, they are scoring higher than us, and they're having more consistency on that. So yes, there is a difference, and we know that teams that generally win the national championship are good vaulting teams, but we are a good vaulting team. So this idea that the vault rotation is this black hole where our scores go to die is not really based in the data. And you'll find over the course of time, I love data. I love numbers, just because they can sometimes counteract perceptions like what we have here, that vaulting is this huge problem that we have. And then you're like, but we're ranked 7th in the nation on vault. So it can't be that big of a problem. But I thought about it because, again, this is something that I get asked quite a bit. And when people were talking about the team, it inevitably comes up. And here's my 2 cents. I think the reason that there is such a focus on vault is that because we are good on vault, but we haven't shown the ability to be great. I think individual members of the team have been great at times. I think almost actually everybody in the vault lineup has had a great vault during the season. We just haven't managed to have all those great vaults occur at the same time on the same meet. And so vault is not a rotation where we're missing a lot of vaults. You don't see our gymnasts sit down a lot of vaults. There's been a couple throughout the season, but it's not something where we're counting missed vaults on a regular basis. In fact, most of the times we're counting scores generally in the 9.8s. But we occasionally get into the 9.9s. Don't get me started on Azariah's 9.975 that should have been a 10, especially when you look at all the other 10s across the NCAA. I am still salty about that. Should have been a 10. But you see, we've got individuals that have potential. I know I'm not going to let that go. That really still gets to me. But we have individuals that have the potential to score a 10 and should be scoring 10s, or scoring 9.95s. It's just the consistency is not there. We're not able to haven't been able to put it together in one meet to have a really outstanding vault rotation. On the flip side, on balance beam, we have had meets where everything hits. And I think there was a meet where basically all the scores we counted, maybe there was one that wasn't a 9.9, but I think all the scores we counted in one of the meets were 9.9 or above on balance beam. So I think the perception about vault has more to do with where is the ceiling? Whereas on beam, we've had some not great beam rotations where we've had to count falls, where we've come off the beam, where we've put our hands down on dismounts. We've had major errors and ultimately had a very low rotation score. But we've also had rotations on beam that are super high. So the perception is that the ceiling is high and that we've seen our team be great on beam. We've seen our team be good and at times really good on vault, but we haven't had a meet where I think you would say that was great. And from start to finish, and these are all this is going to be a really, really strong rotation. I think we look at vault as we just hope it's not a liability. And for the most part, it's not. And I think that's where you see that 7th ranked team on vault. Whereas again, balance beam, again, it's 10th. It's not 100th. So I don't want it to sound like we're talking about it and then on beam, we're terrible. We're not terrible on beam. But I think beam has been a little bit more, I would call it bimodal, where we're either scoring really great or we're scoring not great because we're coming off the beam or having major balance breaks or things like that, versus vault, which is pretty consistently good to really good. So I think that's where that perception comes through. We are only one of 2 teams, it's us at Oklahoma, that never scored below a 197 this season. And to understand just how difficult that is, all you need to know is it's us and and Oklahoma. That's it. So all those teams that are ahead of us, so LSU, nope. Florida, nope. UCLA, nope. And so that level of consistency week after week is so impressive. And it's what gives me a lot of confidence about this team going into the postseason, because the amount of mental fortitude that it takes, and also physical as well. I mean, we've been really lucky during the season to not have been bit by the injury bug too much. I think there's probably some normal just wear and tear that happens throughout the season, but every team is dealing with that. All of our significant injuries happened prior to the season. And that's another point about vault. I want to go back to vault for a second. When I do get questions about vault, one of the first things that I do typically in my responses is I remind folks that we lost a third of our vaulting lineup prior to the season. So both Corinne Banaghan and Karis German are two gymnasts that had season-ending injuries, didn't get to compete, not even once this season. They were both staples in the vaulting lineup last year. Corinne, especially by the end of the season, she had basically, she was like, Yurchenko 1.5, no problem. Stick it. No problem. She had really just, her body had found that rhythm and the timing of the vault, and she was just cranking out stuck vault after stuck vault. It was so phenomenal. And then with Karis, she has so much power. So you're talking height and distance, and just her vaults were so powerful. I remember there was one vault, I think it was against Arkansas. I can't remember exactly, last season, where she stuck it cold and I jumped out of my seat because it was like the biggest exclamation point, because her vaults are so powerful. So when she sticks them, there's just kind of this extra punch to it. And her celebration, she was pure joy. She's so great to watch. But those are two of the six individuals who likely would have been in the vault lineups. That's a third of your vaulting lineup. So to think that you're going to lose a third of your lineup and just, kind of whistle down the street and be like, oh, no, it's not a big deal. Most teams, there's going to be at least a little bit of a drop off or a need to recalibrate. So that's another thing to take into account when we're thinking about vault and maybe what needs to change in the vaults, so that we can score higher on a more consistent basis. But so that is Alabama kind of in a quick snapshot. And so I did want to focus a little bit on some of the apparatuses and what we need to do. So the first things that I think we need to do is to capitalize on our strengths: floor exercise, balance beam. Now, it's kind of weird. It's new this year. If they did it last year, I was completely unaware. But this year, teams in the regionals get to pick, based on who's ranked highest and then the next highest and so on, which rotation they want to start on. So in SEC championships, the highest ranked team, Oklahoma, started on vault and went in Olympic order. The next highest ranked team started on uneven bars, then went in Olympic order, and so on and so on. That's how Alabama ended up starting on floor. But in regionals, you get to pick. And so Alabama is the highest ranked team in their semifinal. And it was announced that uh, we are starting on vault. For a moment, I was going to say we were starting on floor exercise, but that's where I thought we were going to start. So before I knew where we were starting, I was like, we probably will start on floor so that we can start on a rotation that we are comfortable with, that we know we can score really high, kind of get out to a good lead, maybe put some pressure on the other teams. And then we go to vault and we kind of get that out of the way relatively early. The only thing about starting on floor, and it's what I was worried about at SEC championships, but it really actually didn't come to fruition, was that if you start on floor, that means you end on beam. Most teams don't want to end on beam because if you're in a dogfight, you don't want to be on a 4-inch piece of wood trying to flip and maintain your balance when you've got all the nerves. The arenas are loud. I forgot when I went to SEC championships, I forgot just how loud those arenas are. I mean, the music is incredibly loud. Even when people aren't on floor, there's music playing. And so there's not really any moment to kind of breathe and quiet your own thoughts. So again, if you are in a dogfight with another team and it's coming down to a couple of tenths, I mean, do you want to be on beam? I wouldn't want to be on beam, and beam was my favorite event. But no, I still wouldn't want to be on that, because there's just such a small margin for error. So that was the trade-off. But I thought, okay, we started there and we did well. I thought we did well at SEC championships, so maybe we'll start there again. But Alabama has chosen to start on vault. And I do think that the more and more that I think about it, the more I think, okay, that actually is pretty smart in terms of just get it out of the way. And also because I think in some ways starting on floor at SEC championships backfired on us. I know that sounds crazy, but as we know, as the meet progresses, scoring gets looser. So judges get a little bit looser with their scoring. Part of it is my own belief. This is just my theory, but I think that judges do to some degree judge relatively. So they know what they've been giving routines and they start to put routines into a bucket of, was this better than, about the same, or less than these routines that I'm giving a 985 or a 99 or a 995? And so they kind of start to slot them versus just looking up straight deductions, oh, there's, soft knees or a hop on a landing or low chest on landing, out of bounds on floor. Those are equivalent to a certain deduction. And then we add it up and we just take it off, which is kind of how scoring is supposed to go. But I do think that people are human. And so you can't help but go, well, I gave this routine a 9.9 and this one is clearly better or clearly worse than that routine. So I can't give it a score that doesn't make sense. And so unfortunately, I think that leads to kind of tighter scoring in the beginning. And so at SEC championships, routines that we did in the first rotation that scored in the 9.8s, by the end of the ninth, were in the 9.9s. Routines that I thought weren't as good were scoring higher than what we had received in the first rotation. So I do think that as much as it's nice to start on a rotation where you're comfortable, I do think that it didn't allow us to necessarily maximize our scoring the way that we would have wanted to. And so I do think that it's smart. Imagine that. Coach Ashley and her staff knows more than me. Of course they do. They're the best. So I trust them. If they want to start on vault, let's start on vault. But again, I think with vault, when I'm looking at vault for our team, I think a good rotation is a rotation where we don't count a score in the 9.7s and we get hopefully two scores in the 9.9s. So if it's all 9.8s and a couple of 9.9s for us, I think that is a win on that rotation. Then moving on to uneven bars. Obviously, we have an abundance of riches on uneven bars. I mean, when your lead off bar gymnast is Peyton Walker, I mean, you're doing pretty good. And of course, we also have the number 1 and number 2 gymnasts on uneven bars in Chloe LaCourcier, who had kind of a stranglehold on that number 1 spot throughout the season. And she is followed by Azarea Ra Bar, who has just had a phenomenal freshman season. You don't have to watch Chloe long to see why she scores so high on bars. The form, the swing that she has, and the timing of her swing, and when she uses certain elements of her swing, give it a very effortless look. On bars, you don't want to look like you're ever muscling up to a handstand or, kind of really having to use your muscles, even though obviously you're using a lot of them, but you don't want that to appear like you are. And Chloe just looks like she is just floating over those bars, floating from one bar, high bar, to the low bar. Her Van Leeuwen looks just excellent and effortless. But the thing about Chloe that I'm so impressed with is the landing and how she lands her vault routines. One of the things, there's many things that annoy me when I'm watching gymnastics on TV. I know I'm going to get over these things. But one of the things that really sometimes gets under my skin is that the announcers will talk about, oh, she stuck the landing. And while the gymnast's feet may not have moved, there is more to a stuck landing than just not moving your feet. And so in that sense, not all stuck landings are created equal, because some gymnasts, their feet don't move, but pretty much all the rest of their body is moving and the arms are waving and they're bending forward and they're having to do everything in their power to not move their feet. And frankly, all of those things are separate deductions, but the announcers will get excited and they'll say, oh, she stuck the landing. And it's like, yeah, but not really a clean landing. So what I appreciate about Chloe is that it's not just that she doesn't move her feet, but she lands with her chest almost completely upright, which is really hard to do. in the type of dismount that she is doing, where she's not only flipping, but she is twisting. She's also getting her twist all the way around. I know last year there was a lot of criticism for Oklahoma, Audrey Davis, who I love, but whether or not she was getting her twist all the way around, if you watched her feet, more times than not, it didn't look like she actually made it all the way around. Chloe makes it all the way around. She lands with her chest up. There's no movement. She doesn't have to lean forward or back to kind of maintain her balance, no swinging of the arms. It is she hits the ground, she doesn't move. And so to me, I think that is one of my favorite things about her bars. But it is beautiful from start to finish. Now, Azariah Ra Akbar, who's ranked number 2, she is right on Chloe's heels. She anchors our bar lineup. She has just beautiful form, the pointed toes, the really stretched body. So sometimes when you see gymnasts up in a handstand position, you don't see their body really stretched. They're almost kind of starting to pike down. She really stretches it. She holds that handstand, just a beautiful position. Sometimes on her dismount, she gets to that finished position really quick, and it kind of looks like she's off balance, even though she might not be. But she also has earned a 10 on bars. So when we went to Illinois, she earned a 10 on bars. And so super, super good there. Moving on to balance beam. Again, for us to move through and make it to nationals, we got to stay on the beam. And that has been a challenge at times throughout the season, where we've unfortunately, just as sticks are contagious, so can falls. Falls can be contagious too, especially when they happen early in the lineup. What I will be interested to see is Ryan Fuller's beam routine. She did her triple series at championships and did not move a muscle when she hit the end pose. And I had predicted that she would just do the double. She would do the backhand spring and the layout step out and not do the second layout step out, just to be safe, because she's had a meet or two where that has given her a little bit of trouble. So I was super impressed with the skill, but I was also just super impressed that she went for it, because that takes a lot of guts to do that. Again, you'll hear the commentator say it over and over again. The beam is 4 inches wide. Take your cell phone, look at it. That's about as wide as the beam is. And so to do a triple series on the beam, there's so many places, so many little minor places where you can get crooked and you're off. That's it. All it takes is a little bit. Your shoulders are crooked, your hips are crooked, your foot is slightly off and therefore not making as much contact as you need to get the lift that you need. I mean, there's just countless places where things can go wrong. And so by taking out one of those, you're at least eliminating some of those. But so it'll be interesting to see if she does the triple series or if she keeps it, kind of plays it safe. And I think some of that will depend on what we need. If we are in a position where we cannot miss another routine because someone else prior to Ryan has come off the beam, I could see Coach Ashley saying, just stick with the layout, the handspring layout step out. Don't go for the triple series. Maybe we've got a bit of a cushion, and that would be a great chance for her to practice that on a podium and in a pressure situation. So we'll see what happens there. But with beam, again, I think we just need to stay on the beam. And then moving to floor exercise, we just need to do what we've been doing all season, frankly. Yes, there's been a hiccup here or a hiccup there on floor, but for the most part, floor has been pretty rock solid. And I think what I'm so impressed about with floor was that last year we really struggled with foot slides on floor. So when you land a tumbling pass, that front foot cannot move. You cannot slide it. You can lunge back with your back foot, whatever foot you're bringing back, but that front foot has to stay down. And if you have too much power, it's hard to keep enough pressure in that front foot to keep it from moving, and you kind of slide backwards a little bit. And so last year, that was really an issue for the team. This year, not an issue. They have seemed to have really dialed in those landings, gotten comfortable with those landings, and very rarely do we see a foot slide. Do we see an under rotation? Do we see an over rotation? So happy to end on floor because, again, if we find ourselves in a dogfight with a team, I kind of want to be on our best apparatus to do that. Now, if we make it through to regional finals and UCLA makes it through, then UCLA would get the first pick in terms of where to start. I actually don't know where they would pick. I could see them picking vault to start with to kind of, they're good on vault, but I could see them wanting to end on floor, especially when you've got Jordan Childs, who has just been banking tens on floor, because I think Sunday is going to be one of those dogfights in terms of getting through to nationals. But that, in a nutshell, is what I think Alabama needs to do. We obviously are going to look to our leaders, Gabby Gladio in the all-around. She, by the way, is 8th ranked. She finished the season ranked 8th in the all-around, and she was 5th on floor exercise. So she still hasn't gotten that 10, which I really want her to get. And I think she should have gotten a couple of times. Again, are the deductions there? They are. But when we look across the NCAA as a whole, there are deductions also in the other routines that are getting 10. So, if they're not getting that as a deduction, I don't want Gabby to get it as a deduction either. But she finished 5th on floor and just has been such a steadying force to the team. Again, shout out to Chloe. We think about her in terms of bars, but really she has been phenomenal on beam and on floor, very consistent. There's been a number of meets where she has scored 9-9 or higher on all the rotations that she competed in. We're now seeing her do some vaulting. And so I think this is maybe a preview to next season. We'll get into that over the summer. We'll be talking all about the season to come, but you see her on vault and it's just curious, maybe that's the direction that we're heading in. Azarea Ra Akbar has had the freshman season that I don't think any of us expected for her just because it was so phenomenal. She ended up 2nd on uneven bars, like we talked about earlier, 7th on vault. So she's 7th highest vaulter in the nation and 11th on floor exercise. And again, with her, just the attention to detail. We'll talk about it more in detail, I'm sure, during the meets. But one thing I want you to look for, and you might miss it if you don't know what you're looking for, but on floor, she does a leap called a ring jump. And it's the one where the gymnast, they do a split, the back leg bends towards the head, and the gymnast releases their head back so that it looks like their head and their feet are kind of creating this little ring kind of behind. That's why it's called a ring jump. So you have to have the ring shape, and your front leg also has to be horizontal to the ground. Azarea does the most beautiful ring shape, and then she not only takes her front leg parallel to the ground, she does an oversplit. So that leg is actually higher than it needs to be. She gets great amplitude on it, and those toes are pointed. I think she probably points her toes 20 hours out of the 24 hours of the day because those toes are never not pointed in any of her routines. And so it's those little details that I think, even if people don't know what they're looking at, they can look at her gymnastics and go, that is really beautiful. So those are some of the highlights. Oh, didn't want to forget. Jamison Sears finished the season 18th ranked on floor exercise, and Kylie Kwame, my hat is off to her. I'm so happy for her. She ended 13th on beam. She got an All-American specialist designation. I just am so thrilled for her. Beam was something she did last year, but then it kind of started to trip her up. So she ended up doing it some weeks, not doing it other weeks. But this week, not only is she doing beam, she's anchoring it, and she is doing everything you want to see someone do on beam. She has the rhythm, this nice, slow, relaxed pace, but not too slow, where she's still getting connection bonuses. Legs straight, toes pointed, no balance checks, everything feels secure. I'm so happy for her and obviously happy for the team because she's giving us some really, really great scores. But that is the team in a nutshell. We will talk much more. I could talk forever about this team, and we will. But hopefully I will be able to do a recap on Saturday or Friday night of the team and how they did in the Corvallis Regional. And hopefully we'll be talking about who we will be up against on Sunday in the regional finals. Please, if you like what you're seeing, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, we're going to be putting out tons of information. You do not want to miss it. We'll be doing it even after the season ends. And until we meet again, Roll Tide.